What's up? We are not muted. I have verified. I have verified because verification was necessary.
We have messed up.
We have messed up a couple of
times.
All right. I think we got everything. Hey, Crystal's
Hi,
in.
Crystal.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining. 2 tickets is in. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yes.
What is going on, guys? Ooh, Emerald Peanut. I love that username. Welcome to the party.
This is a party.
This is a party. This is it.
This is our Tuesday night party.
Isn't this great? Nobody is late. We're all fashionably on time. All right, guys. Welcome to the show. It's another Tim and Katie live stream. Before we go anywhere else, now that we know that our audio is working, please check out our socials, The Real Tim and Katie on Instagram, Tim and Katie on Facebook, and timandkt.net, which is so close to being up to date. Just so rightfully close. It was up to date, and then we dropped another blog, and now it's like 1 behind, but otherwise...
Better than like 5 blogs.
It was like,
behind.
5 blogs. It was like 15 blogs behind.
Ooh, okay.
I did all of that in 1 day. All the blog posts to catch up.
If they sound very similar to the YouTube description,
It's because a lot of them are. But seriously, guys, we do a lot of traveling and a lot of vlogging, and usually our socials are a little bit ahead of the game talking about where we are and what we're doing, so you get a little bit of a sneak peek. You also get to interact with us in real time so that we can like do fun things, like if we do an Instagram Decides My Day, you get to be part of that. I'm just saying, it would be a lot of fun.
We haven't done that yet.
We haven't done that yet.
We haven't done that
yet, but it's coming. It's coming. Thank you, Crystal, for smashing that like button. And thank you, Kaylee, for always being our publicist in the comments. We love you guys so much. All right. So we're trying something new tonight with our slideshow. If you haven't been a part of the last couple live shows, our slides have been kind of chaotic. I think somewhere between Streamyard, PowerPoint, and the fact that our secondary monitor is like a jet engine just like roaring at us the entire time.
That's why it's quieter in here.
I feel like, we don't have a second monitor today.
There's usually
we're flying a little bit more blind than we usually are, which is saying something because I feel like we're normally like
we're not flying blind, we're just flying lighter.
We are flying with new technology, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're using new features and functions of Streamyard. So please forgive us for any technical difficulties just in advance. I'm just putting a blanket pardon across our entire live stream. But tonight we are going to be talking about something that I think is pertinent to a lot of different theme parks and events and all kinds of other stuff, which is beating crowds. Now, we're specifically going to be talking about beating crowds at the parks we've been to, which includes a lot of Disney parks, a lot of Six Flags parks, Hershey Park, Universal, Busch Gardens. Yeah, these tactics are going to vary somewhat. There's a lot of like broad good information in here that just applies to everything, including like non-theme parks. Like some of this information is transferable to like concerts and events and stuff like that. But for the most part, we're going to be speaking to what we know because we feel like we're going to be better qualified so to do. So with that in mind, and I don't have like the same control over the slides that I normally do because I can't change them while we're up on the screen. Oh, can I? I can.
Wait,
This is a whole new
did
world.
it work?
Boop,
Yay,
it did.
does. You can move it.
Oh, this is going to be fun, guys. This is going to be a fun time. All right. Rope drop. If you've never heard the term, we're going to start here. We're just going to dive right in. I think this is a subject that's going to take a while to go through. And I know if you guys, a lot of the people who come to our live streams have been to theme parks, have gone to theme parks with us on occasion.
Gone to more theme
parks than we have been. So please, if you have any suggestions that we don't cover, feel free to drop it in the comments.
Or if you completely disagree.
Yeah, if you completely disagree, we would like to hear a justification for why you're wrong.
And sources, no kidding.
So, rope drop. If you've never heard of rope drop before, it was a term that was largely, I guess, it was made a household term by Disney. And this is why, because Disney will physically take a rope at the beginning of every park day, and the cast members, they're called in Disney, will walk that rope back physically all the way to the different areas of the park. And the purpose behind that is to control the crowd so that everyone's not doing a mad dash, literally running, which can be very dangerous on pavement, especially in Florida where it tends to rain a lot. So they'll walk people back to different sections and kind of keep things slow but moving and keep things contained and controlled until such a time as they reach what we call the people eater attractions that tend to suck people off, and then the crowd gets a little bit smaller and less dense, and then they drop the rope and people go nuts. But by that time, the number of people has diminished quite a bit, and it's not quite as dangerous.
It's not going to cause a stampede or anything.
This is what rope drop looks like. If you've never done rope drop before, it is an experience, and if you are an early riser, I would say
it just
once.
looks like at any point in time at Disney.
I would argue that the hub isn't always as congested as that.
This is 2 hours before fireworks.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fair.
Oops, sorry.
We're going to talk about fireworks and shows too, because in general, crowds tend to gather where events happen. And rope drop, I would consider an event.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the park day. Everyone has a mind on what they want to do, and people are going to dash for the big attractions, which is another thing we'll talk about. So when we're talking about rope drop, although Disney has kind of coined the term because of the physical rope, a lot of parks do this. Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, where we go regularly, we found out very quickly that although the park may open at 10 a.m., you can get in line at the toll booth to park at around 9 a.m., and they will let you through. And then you can get into security by 9:15, and they will let you through. And then into the holding area at the front of the park, which is London in Williamsburg, which is the London themed area. They'll hold you there for another 5-10 minutes before they let you through. And they'll keep walking people back and back and back. So rope drop is kind of like a broadly used concept, even if it is not colloquially referred to as rope drop at other parks. So when we talk about rope drop, that's what we mean. Now, talking of rope drop, to do rope drop, you have to get up early. So if you don't want to fight the crowds to begin with, getting up early and going to rope drop may be off the board for you entirely. And that's totally fine. I'm not saying that that's like a bad idea. Mm-hmm. The advantage of rope drop is that you start your day earlier. You have the option to end your day earlier, having accomplished just as much as going a little bit later and staying a little bit later. So if you're an early riser, rope drop is very appealing. If you're one to go like rides, rope drop is very appealing. There's a lot of reasons why you would want to get there. If
you missed out on what are they called? Genie Plus Lightning Lane. Gosh,
Lightning Lane reservation.
Remember. If you missed out on a Lightning Lane for one of your must-do rides, rope drop may be a good option for you as well.
On like the back end, like the following day, you mean?
No, like if you got up
like
at
in
7 a.m. and you missed a lightning
for
lane.
Disney specifically, if you go and you try to book with the paid Fast Pass program Genie Plus, if you're unable to make the reservation you want to make because there's too many people.
Yes, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you now. Yeah. I hear you.
I mean, that used to be like the thing before, like lightning lanes were just day of. You
would have to rope drop if you wanted to get on rides with no weights.
Fast Pass 60 days in advance and you knew you missed it. You would go in a rope drop.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of reasons for rope drop to exist. Now, do you want to do rope drop? Do you not want to do rope drop? That's a whole other conversation. We could do a live just on that. But if you're doing rope drop and you want to avoid the mass crowds, set the expectation to begin with that there are going to be crowds there. But knowing that, here's how you can utilize rope drop without being swamped by people and avoiding the masses and not having to wait quite as long when you get there. First of all, study the park. So Hershey Park's rope drop is called Sweet Start, and it is pass holder exclusive to an extent. After Sweet Start, they do let people into select areas.
Pass holders in like Hershey Hotel.
Yeah, you're right. Right. It's not just pass holders; it's also hotel guests. It's supposed to be kind of exclusive.
I think it's actually king size pass holders and hotel guests too. I don't know if every pass holder tier.
I think it's every pass holder.
Maybe.
If not, then they might have changed that over the past year, because the tiered pass holder system just started in the past year. But regardless, Sweet Start is Hershey Park's equivalent of rope drop at, say, Disney. And what they do is very similar to what they do at Disney. Instead of having a physical rope, they just close off certain areas. So you physically cannot get into the Hollow, which is where Sky Rush and Super Duper Looper are, until X time. You can't get into Midway. I'm forgetting all the names of the neighborhoods, even though it's been too long since I've been to Hershey Park. We need to fix that. Down where Laugh Track is and Lightning Racers, towards the back of the park, that whole area is closed off. What you can do right off the bat at Sweet Start is you can go down to Reese's Cup Fusion, which is their dark ride. It's a little shooting ride. It does get long lines. Which gets really long lines. And you can go to Candemonium. I believe you can do some of the limited areas. I think Storm Runner actually opens with the park as well, because I know I've rushed down there and found the queue empty because a lot of people just go to the other things.
Yeah, I think there's just certain parts that are definitely blocked off.
So the moral of the story here is knowing that rope drop is going to close off certain things to you, knowing that the park may not open at X hour and allow you to get anywhere. You do need to take a look at things ahead of time. You don't want to go in with no plan. If you're going to rope drop, you're going to be surrounded by people for probably at least the first half hour. As you get further and further back into the park, those people are going to thin out quite a bit, because people are going to split off to do the things they want to do. You're going to split off to do the things you want to do. Yeah. And hopefully, if you're playing by our rules and our recommended strategies, you're going to get to an area where there's many fewer people than the people that you start with in that holding area. But you got to study the park to know where to go and what to do when you get there. So that's why we always recommend, no matter what the park is, Hershey Park, Busch Gardens, Cedar Fair parks, Disney, just take a look at things ahead of time. Look at the park map, go watch other vlogs, see what people have done in the past, what they recommend, and then start building a strategy from there.
I mean, if you're going to mention Sweet Start, like, shouldn't you mention like Universal's early admission? And Disney has early admission for deluxe resort guests too, right?
I mean, why should I when you're going to do
it? I don't know. Well, I'm just, because because like the Sweet Start to me is like, that's an early admission opportunity. It's not so much like the rope drop.
Yeah.
So that's like just knowing what advantages, like you may not know staying
stay at a hotel and get certain perks, which is another reason to look into the park,
right?
Because
it's still part of studying the park, and just know that. And if you don't meet those requirements, like you're not staying at the right resort or something, don't be surprised when you show up and someone's already riding Hagrid's or whatever.
Right. Right. Because you as a resort guest on certain properties, you will have advantages that other people don't. But as an outsider, like a day guest, if you're just coming, which I'm trying to think in terms of day guests, honestly, I'm trying to make these advertisements, because I know a lot of people that travel to these resorts and these destinations and these parks are not typically paying full freight to stay at, like, at Universal. I know you've got to stay at a Universal owned resort to get these advantages, and they are not the cheapest. At Disney, you know that you can stay at, Pop Century or Art of Animation or whatever, and those are not inexpensive, but they're way less expensive than any of Universal's options, except for like the dockside Endless Summer. Anywho's,
Yeah.
it's all stuff to think about, though. I mean, you're totally right. Like, these are things to consider. If you want to get a leg up, there are many different ways to do it. But talking of,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Tim did mention this, but just make it clear, like, rope drop does not mean showing up at the park at 10 when it opens at 10. It means coming at, like, at least an hour earlier than opening.
Well,
being there.
I hadn't mentioned it yet.
Sorry, I didn't make these slides. I didn't.
Well, since we're here.
We transitioned to this
Since
point.
we're here. Yeah.
Sorry.
We gotta follow some kind of narrative.
I know, I'm sorry.
When we say don't arrive on time, what Katie said is exactly what we mean. When you look at park open, you see hours listed on a website that might say 10 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 11 a.m. It varies widely by the park and the day. But if you are going to try to rope drop, do not show up at that time. You want to show up a minimum of 30 minutes before that time. Arguably, for the bigger parks, you want to show up an hour before that time. Now, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to be walking through those gates an hour before, but they will, as we've said, they will typically walk people back into certain holding areas. And I don't want to say, I certainly don't want to advocate like pushing and shoving, but there are advantages to getting there early in the sense of certain people move slower than other people as you're walking back. So we have arrived on some occasions an hour before park open and found a long line of people in front of us who got there maybe 2 hours early. But a lot of those people got there 2 hours early because they need the extra time, and just walking at a normal pace without doing any pushing or shoving, we found ourselves at the front of that group by the time we were making it into like that second holding area at any given park. So the masses will begin to accumulate earlier and earlier. If you can get in an hour before, highly recommend for most rope drop scenarios. Now, the one place I would not recommend doing this is Hershey Park. And the reason being because their holding area is just the front gate. Like they have other areas of the park, as we mentioned, that are fenced off during this rope drop early morning hour, the sweet start. But if you arrive, and that's why we've learned over the course of many years going to Hershey Park, like the park typically opens post-COVID at 11 a.m. We try to get there at like 11:15 because that gate does not open until a hard 11 on most days unless you're already in with Sweet Start. And if we're not planning to do Sweet Start that day, which requires us to get up really early because we're an hour and a half away, we will just shoot for 15 to 20 minutes after the park gates open, because otherwise that line goes forever out the back of the front gate.
Honestly, I feel like the best deal at Hershey is get that either hit Milton's, which is usually dead because everyone's in line to get in the park, or get that early first morning reservation at Chocolatier, eat some lunch, and then go in after everyone is gone.
That's what we do. That's literally what we do.
Still head towards the back of the park, and it's not as busy.
Don't give too much.
I'm sorry. I didn't make these slides.
I showed you the slide.
Like for a second. Like I promise. I don't remember.
All right. We'll jump to Katie's next point.
I just keep prepping us for the next thing.
Just keep transitioning us.
I'm the transition.
Don't go straight for the popular rides. This applies to all parks everywhere, but especially at parks like Hershey and Busch Gardens that don't have a formal rope drop. Disney's advantage, Disney World specifically, their advantage is that they're so expansive as a property that you can go in 17 different directions and the crowd will thin naturally as you're walking. But no matter where you go in any of these parks, the popular rides are always going to be backed up at rope drops. So take the Magic Kingdom, for example, because I know that was the picture we showed. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is typically the knockout, like over-popular attraction at that park. So you will constantly find that line first thing in the morning, right at rope drop. However many people show up, they all get in that line. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I feel differently about the direction that Jim is going with this, because I feel like if you actually did go to rope drop, and I don't mean you're like you actually went to rope drop and you're at the front of the rope and you walk past like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and that's the ride you absolutely have to get on today and there's no one in line, you should definitely go get in line. What I was saying about don't go straight for the popular rides is if you don't arrive at because part of, I mean, this live is beating the theme park crowd. Sometimes beating the crowds means you don't want to stand in a crowd of people. And if that's the case,
that's sort of my point.
Right, but if that's the case and you do a delayed start, like I mentioned with Hershey Park, that's why I'm saying don't go straight to the popular rides because Tim's right. It's an hour after open. People will have filled up. Candemonium's got a 90-minute wait already. Why would you go get in that line when you can head straight for the back and walk on Storm Runner? So maybe we're not feeling the same thing
Blake
about
Morris is in.
this. Hey, Blake Morris. Nice for you to join us.
He's a local legend.
He is a local legend.
Listen,
that's what I think. But maybe you were going in a different direction.
No, I'm absolutely going in this direction, and I'm going to stick to my guns on this because I don't know if. All right, let's talk about Disney specifically. Let's take the Magic Kingdom as our test sample. It's not going to be 100% accurate across the board because Disney has a very different layout, very different size, very different type of. Jay, it's too late. We've already decided to take everything Blake Morris says as law. Anyways, so Magic Kingdom, if we're using that as kind of like our eyeball on the situation, the reason I say don't go straight for the popular rides is because at Magic Kingdom, you can track wait times in the app. And this is something that I, being as neurotic as I am in looking forward to any Disney trip, I will often go into the app early morning, right after waking up, just because I want to know, hey, on my Monday of my trip, which is comparable to this Monday I'm experiencing here at home, what will these wait times look like? Every morning at Rope Drop, the popular rides are slammed.
But we're not at Rope Drop. We don't Rope Drop.
We're not at Rope Drop,
right.
But we're talking to people who are going to Rope Drop.
Okay, but get this. What if I am at the rope? Like I am standing. I could touch the rope.
I'm not saying
and I got up to get to Rope
Drop
Drop
to get on
so that I could get on the
early.
most popular ride without getting in line. And I'm like the 3rd to 15th person in that line.
Are you trying to avoid the crowds, as is the point of this communication, or are you trying to get on the ride you want to get on?
Well, if you're trying to avoid crowds, going to Rope Drop is something you should avoid.
Is that what we're arguing
for?
Listen, what I'm trying to communicate, woman.
Don't you start. You guys heard that, right?
What I'm trying to communicate is if you go straight for the popular rides, you're going to be surrounded by everyone else who thinks they've had the same idea. It doesn't matter whether you go to Rope Drop or whether you go an hour after Rope Drop, which is why I'm recommending, in an effort to avoid crowds, during Rope Drop, if you go to any ride that is not a top tier Space Mountain, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Candemonium, Pantheon, list the rides off, go to any ride that is not one of those top tier attractions, nobody is there, which is why I'm telling you, because at Hershey Park during Sweet Start, I went straight to Storm Runner, which is midway towards the back of the park. And it's one of the other areas that's open, but a lot of people don't know it's open. Now, to be fair, Jolly Rancher Remix just opened in that area, and I haven't done Rope Drop at Hershey Park since. So it's very possible that the new attraction in that area has drawn new attention there. But previously, and for the sake of example, I'm saying you go to Storm Runner as opposed to Candemonium. Yes,
I'm just seeing a lot of my name in the chat. I have some fans.
I am your fan too. I just don't agree with you.
Remember, guys, Sassy Katie a few weeks back? I think Tim caught the bug. Sassy bug.
Sassy Tim. You don't want to see Sassy Tim.
I think we're interpreting beating the theme park crowd slightly differently.
Well,
which might be the problem, because to me, you're like, how can I manipulate the situation so I could be in like a practically empty part of the park, which is part of beating theme park crowds. But I'm also like,
intent. No, hold on. Before you go down any more rabbit holes, let me be clear about the intent. Yes, I'm doing the Mr. Lee. The intent of steering clear of the theme park crowds, for the sake of everything that we've laid out here today, is going to be avoiding people. Having a fun day at the theme park, getting done a lot of stuff, enjoying your time, avoiding people. I'm not telling you to go and I'm not telling you the best way to go and jump on Space Mountain. I'm not.
Okay.
There are other ways. Genie Plus is a great way.
Okay.
We've done a lot of conversations previously about how to mobilize to get the best, the most rides out of the
I did
day.
not come up with this topic, nor did I participate in the making of these slides. So, as I've said, I'm not saying that I shouldn't have been, but usually I am. So I guess what I kind of questioned why we were doing this, because I was like, didn't we talk about this already? But I'm understanding that I didn't understand what we were actually supposed to be getting at.
It's okay if you guys want to drop.
Sorry,
No, it's cool. Like this is the point. This is the reason why we want to have these conversations too, is because we do want to crowdsource some alternative solutions as well.
I guess we've already talked about quick queues and stuff like that, and that's obviously one way to beat the lines. So this isn't about beating crowded lines, it's about just being away from people in a generally very crowded thing.
This is not the live stream to watch if you are only going to the park for one day and you've never been to the park before and you've got to do it all. This is the live stream to watch if you have been to the park to some extent.
You want to enjoy
the day and you don't want to be shoulder to shoulder with
people's theme park body odor.
Yeah, we probably should have talked about this before we started.
Yeah, I'm just learning what we're actually talking about as we are figuring.
Oh my lord!
So
what a stream! All right, so we've covered then. Don't go straight to the popular rides.
If you want to avoid thousands
of people, we have talked about having a planned route, and we have talked about studying the park. Some other things that we can do to avoid having long lines is to talk about what happens after rope drop, because rope drop lasts for what, 30 minutes to an hour. When does rope drop officially end? I think it's officially at park opening, but like a couple minutes before.
I guess it ends after the ropes have dropped, right? Like once they've walked it all back, the park
officially
is
when they drop the ropes. Yeah, Disney. I mean,
open.
You could time it by them physically dropping.
Yeah, but like for anything, like once all the areas, because we implied that like at some places there's not a physical rope, it's sometimes like a little mini gate, or sometimes it's just people standing there like telling you can't move. So I knew someone
early theme park entry. Yeah,
we may have just missed
we covered it
that
a little
coverage a little bit, but basically, like if it's not rope drop, some areas of the park just aren't open. Like we've learned from Busch Gardens and Hershey Park, like they just some areas of the park
Universal
just
for early
won't
park
open
entry
until 11 or 12 or something, and like sometimes like water rides won't open. Like at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, the water rides won't open till like noon a lot of days. So I guess by the time, depending on like how long until the park is fully open, because technically I guess you could like rope drop a ride that's not open until an hour later.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, when the park officially has like opening hour, like at the official time of opening, that's when people who are not planning to rope drop are thinking they need to show up. And often they are surprised to see hundreds of thousands of other people.
If you've arrived at park opening or later, you have missed rope drop. We'll just say that. Technically, you've missed rope drop.
And at that point, that could be your plan too. I'm not, as I started off, if you're just joining, you missed a whole lot of drama.
You missed me being psychic.
I started off by saying like rope drop may not be for you if you're trying to avoid people altogether, but if you're trying to get a full park day out of the day and still manage to avoid people to some extent, the big dense crowds you're trying to steer clear of, you can rope drop and go for less popular attractions. Now, if you're showing up at park open and you're going big on rides today, or at least that is your plan, to do as many rides as you can without rubbing shoulders with people the whole day. It is possible. There are some things that we've learned by doing this the hard way several times over before eventually learning to do things the easier way. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to ride lines and talk about some of our do's and don'ts for those as well. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is this is what the average ride line looks like on a Saturday in July. This is Six Flags Great Adventure. I wanted to kind of vary a little bit, but I have definitely seen the El Toro line look like this and walked right away from it because this is what I don't like. This is what I'm trying to avoid. So first things first, set realistic expectations. By this, I mean, there's no avoiding people altogether. As much as you would love to have a park to yourself, Disney used to do after-hours events beyond Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and the Very Merriest After Hours and the special seasonal events. They used to do like regular just Wednesday night, Friday night. Yeah, hours. And those were so worth it. Like, you would pay a premium. You would pay for more than a day ticket's worth of money to stay for less than a day's worth of time, but you would get so much done because there was no one in the park with you.
Because I swear they sell less of those tickets for after hours than they do for like the Halloween and Christmas party. They have to, because it still feels so crowded sometimes.
It does. No matter how minimal the event capacity, like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party at Disney it's billed as a limited capacity event, but if you watch some of the videos, the vlogs that have come out, and actually I think Jay and Sam had just done a vlog on Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party recently. I know it got rained out a little bit, but you can see even in the hub just the number of people that are watching that Hocus Pocus show that's going on, which is probably a great show. I don't blame them one bit. It's more than you would expect for a limited capacity event. And that's because the parks have such a wide capacity across the board. And this goes for all parks too, that if everyone condenses into one spot, that spot's going to feel like you're packed in shoulder to shoulder, because you are, because there's no getting away from that number of people. So
back to realistic expectations. I don't know if this is covered later, but knowing that like some, like,
I swear I showed you the slide.
I showed it like for a second. It was like,
well, you should have taken your Limitless pill before.
I could barely absorb them. So for setting realistic expectations, if you don't have, quick queues and stuff, which is really not what we're going to focus on tonight, an hour-long wait for the most popular ride in the park may be the best deal you get all day. You may not be able to, it may not drop lower than that. And just set your expectations that, hey, if it drops to an hour, I'm going to get in that line.
Exactly. So when you're looking at, so not every park does wait times and not every park does wait times well. Like Hershey Park, I know there's very mixed opinions on the app, and we do use the app. Like, we like to look at the wait times and see what the estimates are, but they're so
actually
often
the
totally
worst
off.
app was Dollywood, because that one said look at wait times on the app and they were non-existent.
That might have been a glitch that day. I'm willing to go back.
2 days.
We'll call it a. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I've only been the one time.
Jay and Sam or anyone else who's been to Dollywood, have you used the app and did it actually have wait times? Because
it did not help us that day.
They did not exist on the app. But yeah, Hershey is not updated often, and
Disney's
sometimes you'll show up and the ride is closed.
Disney's wait time updates are like minute by minute, which means they're very trustable. And actually, we found that the wait times are largely inflated, which means you're going to usually, not always, but usually you're going to wait less time in the Disney lines based on the wait times that are posted in the app
inflated
than you are going to be expecting. But elsewhere, yeah, Hershey Park has had rough operations. I would say ride operations are great, but the app's functions and features that are supposed to be part of your park day, that they really do want you to make part of your park day, they're not seamless. So when you're setting realistic expectations for yourself, you look at the waits in the Hershey Park app, and then you wander over to the Hershey Park line and you look at that line. You got to make a decision for yourself whether or not you want to stand in that line, because it could be exactly on the mark, or it could be an hour longer than that. You got to know that, like Laugh Track, Candemonium, Sky Rush, The big attractions will almost always have a wait.
Laugh Track
Laugh Track has the longest
is
wait.
so long.
often.
Like, it's a fun, short
And it's not
ride,
because
but
it's like the most popular track. It's because it just has such low capacity. It only
yeah.
has four people to a car, and the cars are set off individually. And it just takes a while.
Yep.
If you rope drop Laugh Track, you can get on it several times before people even show up, which is why I'm saying you don't always go for Pandemonium right off the bat.
Well, it's also like, what is your? It's not even like rope drop do the ride you want to do the most that you know gets along. Like, I would definitely rope drop Laugh Track. Yes. Apparently it did have bad
Not
reviews.
every app is perfect.
Yeah.
I will say that.
No.
We're also going to touch at some point on, actually I think it's coming up, on the Fast Pass, the use of Fast Pass.
Yeah, it's not that we didn't, mostly for Dollywood, it's not that we did use the Fast Pass, and we barely waited in any lines whatsoever. Mostly what we wanted the app for was to see when Lightning Rod would open, and we had to keep checking like the boards that are placed like in strategic places.
I think the boards were relatively accurate.
The boards were definitely
but
accurate.
the app was not.
But the app was not.
So going back to setting realistic expectations for yourself, you're not going to be able to completely avoid people if you want to get on popular rides. The only way to do that is to keep an eye on wait times in a relatively consistent app, which doesn't always mean the official app. Sometimes you got to go through a third party. Sometimes you got to ask cast members or team members, or you got to kind of decide what you want to do. Would you rather get on Space Mountain if it means like rubbing shoulders with people for half an hour to 45 minutes, or would you rather get on two attractions that have lower waits? And you can make decisions on that basis. Now, if you decide to get in the longer lines, first thing I would say is that if it's less, you got to kind of set your own threshold for like what's a long line, which is why somewhere in here, there we go. You say don't join a long queue. When I say a long queue, if I'm looking at a ride that I know from experience at some point will drop or has dropped to 30 minutes, I'm not going to join the line when it's 60 minutes. That's just a waste of my time. But if you're like dead set on getting on that ride and you're willing to wait out 45 minutes,
an hour and 20 minutes all
right.
day.
Yeah. As Katie said, some rides, Cup Fusion at Hershey Park is a big one. You're not going to have any shorter wait than you got at a certain point in the day. You hit 12 p.m. noon, everyone who's coming to the park is in the park. I would actually argue,
not true.
Well, I would actually argue that 3 p.m. all those crowds are at the attractions that you're going to want to
I think between 12 and 3 for most parks, I think that's when you're like peak crowds, because I don't think everyone's arrived by 12 noon.
I think that most people who are planning to get a full park day try to be there earlier than 1 o'clock. I would argue
it's true, but not everyone is going for a full park day. Some people are locals who only show up for 6 hours or something.
True.
And they could. I still think, like, in my experience, like 3 p.m. is usually when I notice that crowds, for especially during like a summer season or a weekend, like that is like peak.
Well, we're going to talk about summer seasons and weekends too, but
are we?
Yes. I think the thing that we both agree on is if you are aiming for a morning, like getting as much done as possible in the morning, and then you're staying the rest of the day, just bear in mind that somewhere between noon and 3 o'clock, every line is going to be a lot longer than it will be in the morning or the evening.
That's what I think.
So whether you're, waiting for that one golden window where you can go straight for that ride you've been dying to ride, or whether you have done that ride and you want to do like 3 other ones, it could be that there's just a window where you have to choose between getting on a ride at all or just sitting and chilling and waiting for the crowds to thin out a little bit. And that's kind of something that you got to decide for yourself too, is how badly do I want to avoid these people? Am I okay with just like standing in line for, 30, 40 minutes and then getting on a fun ride? Or do I want to avoid people altogether? Is it too hot out? Am I dehydrated? Just let me go sit inside for a little bit. And hey, we've done that plenty. We did that at Dollywood. For a spell, we just needed to sit and chill for a little bit, even though we hadn't gone as far as we wanted to, and we knew that rain was coming. We just decided, hey, we're dehydrated, we need lunch, let's just go inside and face the crowd. And we did, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would say if you're going to get in a long line, if you've decided that, hey, this 45-minute doesn't sound as bad to me as it did an hour ago when it was 60 minutes, I'm just going to brave it so that I can ride the ride I want to ride, have a way to pass the time. For us, this is Heads Up or similar apps that you can just play with your friends. And it actually, if you're like positive in those long waits, it will inspire positivity around you and other people might start doing similar things. Usually when one person starts playing Heads Up on their phone, like 7 or 8 other people start playing Heads Up on their phone. So it can be a lot of fun, which means crowds don't have to be the end of the fun day at whatever park. But it goes right back to setting realistic expectations for yourself. Like if you're gonna brave the line, just know that there are other people in that line with you. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. If it turns out to not be worth that at the end after you get off your ride, just brush it off and go back to other tactics to get through the rest of the day. But it all comes down to the kind of day you wanna have. Mm-hmm. Now, what you were mentioning before about Genie Plus, you can also look into paid upgrades to circumvent the wait altogether. At Universal, this is a huge advantage because passes at Universal, we've done a whole live stream on quick queues and fast pass and a whole separate live stream on Genie Plus. So that one, if you want to go back at some point and watch that one, if you're new to the channel, we cover a lot of these options and I believe they're all up to date as of 2022, but we could be wrong. Or they could change tomorrow, for all I know.
Yep.
But paid upgrades like Fast Pass will typically get you past lines a lot faster. Well, Fast Pass, the actual term, used to apply to the Genie Plus reservations you now make through Disney. But the broader understanding of Fast Pass is just Express Pass. The skip the line pass is basically Express Pass, Fast Track, Quick Queue. Yeah, all those different options that you typically have to pay for. Disney, I think, was the holdout on not doing this, on not making people pay for this. And then they went all in on the Genie Plus reservation system, which understandably had mixed reactions across the board.
Yeah.
But
for Sassy Katie, go back to that live stream.
But because there's plenty of Sassy Katie in this live stream.
I don't know. I mean, it's more like confused, dazed and confused.
Katie. But because Disney has now gone in on paid Fast Pass reservations, now I believe every major theme park system does have some kind of pay-to-play system. So you can look into paid upgrades to avoid crowds altogether. There's still going to be some wait in most scenarios because you're not the only one paying for those exclusive results. But in general, the more expensive a paid platform is, the shorter the line is going to be. And Six Flags, Chad and Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've not done this at Six Flags yet, but I believe Six Flags has tiers of Fast Pass where you can actually pay more and more and more to wait less and less and less, if I'm understanding the system correctly, because it's all virtual waits.
It's all like the watch thing.
I'll be honest, I have not spent enough time at Six Flags over the past couple of years to utilize Fast Pass.
Yeah, not when we felt.
When we went to Six Flags parks in 2020, there was no need for Fast Pass. I mean, it wasn't offered anyway because crowds were so low due to limited capacity, but I don't think we've actually been back to a Six Flags park properly since 2020.
No, I don't think so.
Not because we don't want to, just because we've been so busy doing other stuff. We tried to get to Six Flags Great Adventure this summer, and summer's over. Yep. Sorry. I hate to break it to you. Summer's over. I've seen a lot of comments pouring through, so I do want to touch on some of them before we roll on rather. Skip out midday. Yep. To your point of between 12 and 3.
Yep.
When it gets busy. Vanessa recommends Comet for a sweet start. I can get behind that.
Gosh, I haven't been on Comet in so long because the line has been long.
Comet is one of those lines because it's family friendly and because of the nostalgia for the coaster heads. Like it does back up.
Yeah.
The later you get in the day. Hey, Jamie and Ari made it. No worries, guys. We just missed all the chaos and confusion. And yes, from same as regular line, then 40%. Yeah, so all virtual waits, right? And you pay a certain amount of time to not stand in line at all.
So if it's like an hour line long wait, they can either
then your
knock
virtual
40 or
queue
90.
is 60 minutes for the first tier.
Interesting.
Second tier is 40% off, and then 90%. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that the only thing I don't like about that, because I do understand it, and because I understand it, I like it. But the only thing that I don't like about that is I would never be able to explain that to like my mom or my grandma or.
Well, we can rest easy that your mom and
my mom's probably not going to Six Flags
anytime
anytime
soon. Six Flags park probably.
But a lot of parents, grandparents, and otherwise not as comfortable with technology and virtual waits as we are do go to those parks, and that does seem to be a confusing system. So
I can see it being confusing the first time you're using it.
Yeah, for 100%.
But
I
don't.
Long run,
but honestly,
I
feel like it's less confusing than Genie.
Oh, 100%. Virtually anything is less confusing than Genie Plus.
So Vanessa,
aiming to ride Haunted Mansion, Carousel of Progress, Big Thunder Mountain during Magic Kingdom. Yep, yes, absolutely. If you
got
leave
the
early.
Strategy down.
Zoe,
hi, Zoe,
what's up? How's the move going? Drop a comment. Let us know how settling into Orlando is going. I actually know how it's going. I've seen nonstop theme park material from her Instagram stories, so it's going great.
So far, so good.
It's going great. Let me tell you how not being at Disney is going. All right. So, moving on to our next wheelhouse, so to speak. Oh, it's going great.
We figured.
So, snacks and meals. You would think this would be relatively straightforward, but let me tell you, I have seen a number of people goof this up and go stand in a forever long line. I will say we have goofed this up too.
Oh, for
when
sure.
we went to Dorney Park, just as an example, we almost didn't eat like at all because so many lines were backed up when we started getting hungry, and it was we just made all the wrong decisions. And we went to all the wrong places.
And that was so weird because it was just so not crowded, but it was, and like but I think it was.
But again, like the population density moves.
Well, like I think there were just so many closed food places that the ones that were open were so packed.
We're slammed, yeah.
And also that decision that I made and Dollywood for us to eat was not a great place to avoid crowds.
Well,
either.
yeah, but we didn't know that yet because we hadn't been to that area, so we didn't know. You guys will see in our upcoming vlog, which is actually dropping on Thursday if anyone is interested, and we're thinking about doing a premiere. Drop a comment if you think that's a good idea, and I guess drop another comment if you think it's not. But anywho's, it's when we went to Dollywood, we ate at Wildwood Grove at a place called Till Harvest, and Wildwood Grove, we thought, because we had never been to the park and we were going by what we were seeing on the park map that we had studied at the front of the park, we thought Wildwood Grove was the very, very back of the park. Now, we knew that it was the newest area of the park, and we knew that it was very well themed and very popular, but we did think it was at the back of the park, which meant in our minds, hey, it's going to take the crowds a long while to work back there. We can probably plan to eat there and just figure it out as we go. Well, you don't realize, if you're looking at it from our point of view, that there's a cut through that takes you almost directly to Wildwood Grove from the opposite side of the park.
Yeah, Dollywood's
so it's
actually
like,
a circle.
It's a circle. We're not used to circles. We're not used to efficiency. I don't know why.
We're used to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, where you've got to go like this.
Well, Busch Gardens Williamsburg is a circle. I'm more thinking like Hershey Park is like a horseshoe. Like to get to the back of the park,
Busch
you gotta
Gardens is not a circle. Down. You cannot walk the circle.
You can walk the circle.
Busch Gardens Williamsburg is not a circle.
It absolutely is a circle.
It's not.
You can't walk from like London to another place without going back to London.
It may have a central circle, but there are places that dead end and you have to walk back from.
Certain areas, yes. But I'm talking about like Dollywood is a complete circle, and Hershey Park is a horseshoe. You can't get anywhere in Hershey Park without going back to where you came.
I 100% agree with that about Hershey Park. It's not a circle.
Anyway,
let's talk about shapes.
Wildwood Grove, that's what it was. The Uncrustable PBJ sandwich. We did not avoid crowds, is the end summary
We
of
also
everything that we
made
did
another
do.
mistake that I remember from the slides that will appear in a few slides, which was eating at like 12 noon.
Yeah.
That was also a mistake.
But we only did that because we thought we were at the back of the park.
we thought we were going to be in a
one
low
tip
crowded
would
area.
circumvent the other tip, and that didn't happen.
We're going to be real. The heat was starting to get to me, and I thought I was going to pass out if I didn't eat food.
She's always unused to circles, and she used to work at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. So by definition, it's a circle.
I just can't. There's so many. It's not a good circle. I love that park. It's not a good circle.
Hey, Storming Thrills.
Hello.
What's up?
We're happy you're here too.
We are happy to have everyone. Thank you all for joining. We know you have we know you have other choices of airlines to fly.
Kaylee brings up a good point about now. That was a problem because
of Howler Scream.
Half the park was closed.
Because
off.
they shut down half the park.
So it was literally just like a strip that was open. So any time you wanted to go somewhere was just to come back down, and back up, and back down. We did not navigate that well.
Yeah. Getting a little off topic. But so for those just joining, we were talking about snacks and meals and do's and don'ts in order to avoid the crowds. This is what the lines typically look like at lunchtime, at any given booth, any given restaurant,
lunchtime, dinner time.
Yeah, and I did touch on this, but we're going to do a deep dive on it too, that the best way to avoid lines is to go to the center instead of the front or back for Hershey. Arguably at Hershey, because of the horseshoe formation, you can get a lot done if you go all the way to the back first thing in the morning. But if you are getting there post rope drop or post sweet start and you go all the way to the back, you will typically find people there because those people are me and I beat you to it. So when talking about how to avoid crowds at meal times, first of all, bring snacks where permitted. Not every park will let you. Disney, I know, will let you take your own food and drink in as long as it's like clear bottles, non-alcoholic, so on and so forth. But some other parks won't. Like Hershey Park, I know technically has a rule where you're not supposed to bring snacks in. That's not to say that we never have. That's not to say that they enforce it strictly.
Don't expect to be able to bring your like beach-sized cooler.
No, yeah. You can't bring entire lunches in, but you can go back to your car and grab something. It's relatively
bring a
close.
Clip Bar or something to eat
right
at peak time and then get your lunch later.
And to be clear, this tip is not to replace lunch.
No.
This is to keep you going until lunch, because the next and most important tip we can offer is eat at off-peak times. Now, for us, moving around the park at the speed at which we do, we don't have kids, we're two adults, we like to hit as many rides as we can. We're trying to avoid crowds to the best of our ability, although we do face crowds from time to time just to get it over with and have the rides we want to have. But usually what we will try to do is eat at what we think of as being off-peak times. Now, off-peak times have evolved since we started thinking about them, because since 2020 and our rough experience trying to find food at Dorney Park, we tried to eat at off-peak times at Dorney and found every single booth. Now, again, as Katie said, this was during the height of the COVID pandemic. This was when we had limited staffing. Most restaurants weren't open. So the ones in the main areas on the strip and whatnot in the park were just backed all the way up. Any sit-down place had a 45-minute wait. Any window had at least a 25 to 30-minute wait. And we also made the mistake of not snacking at all, not hydrating properly, and being ready to drop by the time we started actually looking for food. So we made a lot of mistakes in a row that day. But we were, to our credit at least, we were trying to eat at off-peak times. And that would have worked well if we thought about all the other things that go into this. At any major theme park where there are multiple options and you can move from place to place and you have some variety, we have off-peak times down as like eat lunch at between 10:30 and 11 a.m. So early lunch before everyone gets in. That's very early lunch for some people. I like to eat an early lunch anyway because my body is just trained that way since we get up early for work. But 10:30 to 11 a.m. is like when some people are getting up for their park day.
And of course that only works if like you're at the park before 10 or 11 either, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're probably not going to eat an early lunch at Epcot.
Most Southwest Grill, yo.
It is. Yes.
There's a reason it's always
Some
peak time there.
popular establishments that are like chains at your restaurants. At your
Chain
parks
restaurants, when you know what you're getting.
Maybe always popular.
But go to Subway towards the back of the park, across from the boardwalk at Hershey Park at an off-peak hour. You will walk right up to the window. You will take your food and you will walk away. That is how easy it is. I've done it multiple times.
I just prefer to eat at Milton's.
I mean, yes, you can always eat at a better restaurant, but are you trying to avoid crowds? Again, this is all down to the day you want to have.
I swear, like the only times Milton's is like actually crowded is like end of the park day because people are there getting their ice cream.
Because people will be trying to get stuff on their way out.
Yep.
But Milton's is kind of a unique venue as well. It's not just like, I mean, it's right at the front of the park. It's like the Rainforest Cafe.
Jealous by mentioning Milton's as many times as I can in this live stream.
I'm sure you could squeeze a couple more in. It wasn't gone when I was there. When were we there last with Molly and Brandon? That's June, July.
Weren't there two Subways though? Because there was one that's like
there's
towards
one.
The front,
there's one in the front, and then there's one towards the back near the boardwalk.
And I think the one in the front is gone.
Yeah, you're right. So the one near the fudge shop is closed.
Storming goes, confirm for us whether the Subway still exists.
Yeah.
So that we're not.
We need to phone a friend.
We need a Hershey Park insiders.
Milton's does have amazing
They do.
Milton's has pretty much amazing everything. I'm just going to throw
Milton's really have not disappointed.
I've already eaten dinner and I'm already hungry again.
Milton's.
So back to the... Find smaller, less visible options. This is how we circumvented our issue at Dorney Park. So we actually was a Subway, but that we ultimately wound up eating.
I never thought we'd bring up Dorney Park so many times in this live
stream. This is the tragedy of Dorney Park, is that it's honestly not that bad a park. It's honestly not. It gets a bad rap, but it is not a bad park. The problems that we had with Dorney Park that day were all relating to the density of crowds and the attractions that we wanted to do, and the density of crowds at lunchtime, occupying all the spaces we want to occupy in line. So what we ultimately wound up doing was we went all the way to the back of the park and found a Subway that, for the most part, people didn't seem to know existed. That was not completely without line. There were people that had been in the back of the park that were gravitating back towards the front of the park and saw it and got in line. And they were in line ahead of us.
After we got in line, it seemed like the line for it got so long because I think people were realizing it existed.
Right, because it was an alternative. So when you go looking for lunch, if every line is backed up, back to Hershey Park again, that Chick-fil-A at the front of the park.
Oh, yeah.
It's right next to Cup Fusion. So after your kids get off Cup Fusion and they see Chick-fil-A, the first thing they're going to do at lunchtime is reference Chick-fil-A, and you're going to be going back there.
Yeah.
It's just slammed all the time. So it's prominent. It's right next to a major attraction, and you can see it from the monorail. Go for somewhere that is none of those things if you want to avoid people. There are plenty of places in Hershey Park and Disney and other places. Or walk back. Just put an asterisk down for every time you want to mention Milton's, and then we'll just do a total count.
I'll watch back this through and see how much.
Oh, we have it confirmed. The Subway is still there. The one by Frontier Flyers. There's two still open.
Yeah,
we had three. We had 3 Subway locations. Now we have 2.
Wow, I didn't realize there were 3.
Subway is a big part of Hershey Park.
I guess so.
You know what else is? Pepsi. So let's go someplace other than Hershey Park.
No! I mean, yes, but Pepsi.
All right. Talking of some other Hershey Park options, do make reservations if possible. My first thing my mind is going to is the Chocolatier at Hershey Park, because if you try to do walk-up, probably 2 hours after the park opens, the Chocolatier is gone for the day.
Yep.
And they have the capacity they have, and if you're out of reservations, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Your only chance at that point is to see if bar seating's available, and that's very hit or miss.
Yep.
But there are many, many, many other theme parks for which this is true as well. Not so much the Cedar Fair parks like Dorney and Cedar Point and all that.
They don't have, but
some of them do have sit downs, but
Universal,
Disney
definitely has sit downs.
Hershey with the Chocolatier. I'm trying to think of the other. Busch Gardens, you can't really make reservations.
Dollywood had down, at least one sit down restaurant.
Yeah, but
maybe
not,
or
not
two,
advanced
but
reservations, but put your name on a list.
you
type
can put your name
reservation.
on a list. Yeah.
And the same is true for places in the island, which is
Yeah.
not a theme park, but it's where my mind's going.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are different parks have different rules. Sit-down restaurants will often have the capacity for reservations. So do your due diligence before you go to the park. I think the takeaway from this whole live stream is don't go anywhere without looking on the website first. But do your due diligence for meal times and look ahead to places you might want to eat at. And even if you don't wind up eating there, if you make a reservation, you have a safe place, like a reserved time to go and eat something somewhere.
Yeah.
And you can usually, at Disney, it does penalize you if you cancel within 24 hours, unless you go and talk to the host at the stand. But in most cases, there's no disadvantage to making a reservation. You just have a place to go to eat.
And, like Jay and Sam mentioned, for how they handle theme park days, like go off site, get out of there and go to off-site, go back to your resort and eat. Oh my gosh, they're empty middle of the day. We had almost have no problem eating at any time middle of the day at a Disney or Universal resort because people are at the parks. So
absolutely. 2 don'ts for this category as well. Don't be afraid to inquire with the host. I'm thinking of an occasion at Universal's Islands of Adventure. When the park was slammed, we wanted to eat at Mythos, however you pronounce it. I'm now saying Mythos because of Jay and Sam and Mitch and Devin's blogs. But I think
we always said Mythos.
I've historically said Mythos, and I want to go back to it because I think it's more
Is
fun.
anyone Greek?
Do we have any Greek folk on the line? Could we phone another friend? Anyways, we walked up to Mythos. And
Mythos. Why don't we just totally throw it out there?
I don't think it's that. It was backed up, and we inquired, is there any capacity? And they said we are fully booked. All reservations have closed for the day. And in my mind, that's no luck. We're done. We can't get in. We'll have to find someplace else. And we start walking away. And then in the same breath, the hostess says, but we do have walk-up capacity, and the wait is about 25 minutes. And we're like, I'm sorry, what?
He walked away.
I walked away, and then I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, hold on. Then I went back. It was literally like I did a double take.
And it didn't even take 25 minutes.
It didn't. We were in like 10. Yeah. So even when it looks busy, or even when reservations are sold out online, just approach the host stand and see what they can do. Don't be afraid to ask, is there any capacity? Be nice. Don't be pushy. I know it's really tough when you're starving and there's not a whole lot of food options and you're trying to figure out the best way to accommodate your stomach and you're already hangry. But if you're polite with people, oftentimes they will find a way to accommodate you or give you a best recommendation as to how someone else could accommodate you. And that has been our experience at most theme parks, is that, the chocolatier will offer you the bar seating if it's available. Mythos offered us walk-up capacity, which we didn't even know existed.
And some restaurants, not all, I think this is rare, but some have lounges you can go in
Space
that have
220.
walk-up, like Space 220. That's how some people can get in when there's no reservations for weeks.
No reservations. Other thing is, don't forget to hydrate for all those reasons I listed earlier.
That should be on every single live stream.
It should be on every live stream because it's just a broad
about
tip that can apply to anything.
Because you can go longer if you're hydrated. And I know everywhere it seems has had real bad heat waves this summer. Hopefully we're finally getting past that here. But
but it'll be back next year.
We know that Florida never gets quite the reprieve that we get up north. So
it's coming. It'll come back. Hopefully not this year, but next year it'll be back. So remember, guys, to hydrate as you're moving through your park day. Allows you to go for longer without stopping, and allows you to do all these things that we're talking about doing without taking it out of yourself and having to slow down and quit at the end of the day. Character meets. This is not going to apply to every park. But I thought it was worth including.
The ones that have characters.
Yeah, I thought it was worth including because of Disney and Universal, and to some extent the smaller parks like Hershey They do have characters that roam around. Even Knoebels, I think, does have like Cosmo.
Yeah, the only times we've seen is he's driving around.
Well, that was because we only went in 2020 and beyond,
in
so
2021.
we might be back meeting people now. But anyways, there's a whole different category for character meets because it was worth talking about. Here's Minnie. So, first thing, plan ahead for the must-do meets. Character meets aren't for everyone. We have a lot of people in our inner circle who like going to Disney, but don't necessarily like meeting characters. We like meeting characters. I don't know why. It just brings out the inner child in us. But if we're like dedicated to meeting certain characters, we know those are the characters we want to meet, and we plan for that. Like if we know that you can meet Anna and Elsa at Epcot, then we can go to Epcot, we can go to that physical location, we can pay attention to the times, and we can get in line. And we can do that first thing in the morning, shortly after rope drop, when no one else is doing it because they're all going to rides.
Tim will
and there are ways to do
definitely
that.
rope drop Anna and Elsa.
I would.
Over rope dropping.
I would 100% do that.
Because
I will just Genie Plus my way on Test Track and Cosmic Rewind eventually. What's up, Nathan? Welcome to the live stream. Talking about characters right now, but that is not the point of the live stream. So don't leave. Anyways, so plan ahead for those must-do meets. We're back again to set realistic expectations. With characters in particular, big thing for kids. So families, large groups, children tend to gravitate towards these lines. There's rarely a way to fast pass, express, Genie Plus, or otherwise bypass character meet and greets. At Universal, I don't even think they have like registered queues. They just like pop up. Mm-hmm. Certain characters will show up at certain times in certain places, and that might be listed, but they won't have like formal lines. They'll just have like team members trying to wrangle people into a line and then waiting it out. And at Disneyland, they have roaming characters, so you don't even get a chance to stop and take a picture. You have to sometimes take a video
about trying to meet characters. Like, I love the roaming characters at Disneyland.
I do too. I think it's awesome.
I wouldn't trade it, but there are times when I'm like, I really don't want to like elbow these children out of the way, but I really need to talk to Loki right now. Anyway.
Which you did in the end.
I did. I had to for Kaylee.
You did. So that it comes back to setting realistic expectations. If you want to get in these lines, just be aware that there are going to be larger groups in these lines most often because they are a big appeal for kids. Now, if you're full-grown adults that might not consider this a full-blown priority for your theme park day, then this is a total non-issue. But if you are a child at heart that wants to meet characters, pick and choose the characters you want to meet. Get in the lines you feel like you can handle, or the lines that you feel like is worth standing in that line to meet that character, and then go on about your park day. I would highly recommend not waiting in every single character line at every time you see a character appear, because that's just going to eat so much time, and you're not going to avoid any people. They're all going to be there all day. Spider-Man. My last tip here is know what you want to say, because they are trying to keep those lines moving. Much like the live stream we did about the convention etiquette that we did with our friend Rachel.
You want to talk to
if you want to talk to a celebrity, characters are a lot like celebrities. Exactly. Yeah. Zoe says she'd wait 3 hours to see Peter Pan, which she's just saying out of spite because I told her I'd only wait 20 minutes to meet Peter Pan.
Wait, you like meet Peter Pan or
meet Peter Pan?
Okay.
No, meet Peter Pan. Okay. Zoe, if you're talking about riding Peter Pan, this is an even worse idea.
I don't know. Peter Pan's. Sorry, Peter Pan's a character at the park. That's
Peter
fun
Pan
to
is
me.
a character at the park. But 3 hours is probably too long to wait.
Y'all know that there was a Peter and a Wendy who like actually got married. It's the sweetest story ever. Okay, we can move on. I'm sorry.
Fun facts from the Katie side.
It's too cute though. So,
on to shows and parades. This is more widely and broadly accessible to other theme parks than just Disney, but especially at Disney and Universal, where these are like big tier events that happen every day. When you can plan around the clock for these things to happen.
And they're usually on a schedule.
They are. And so actually King's Dominion, when they did like Grand Carnival, their parade was on the schedule too. It was once a day and it was only during a specific season, but you could set your watch by it. It would go off at exactly a certain time.
Yeah.
So these are events like any other events that you can plan for, and they, like any other events, they are going to draw crowds. If you're trying to avoid crowds, just know as we talk about these things that you're already going into a more densely populated situation. You can go home at fireworks, just like Chad and Vanessa recommended earlier on. You get burnt out and you want to jump home, there's nothing stopping you. Nothing says you have to watch the fireworks show from the park. You can watch it just outside the park. Yeah. Yeah. Although I am excited to see the Walt Disney additions to Enchantment.
It's not going to be Disneyland forever, though.
It's not. Speaking of King's Dominion, this is the Grand Carnival Parade. It happened to be a picture that I found, which I thought looked really cool. So this goes for fireworks and parades. You can look into paid upgrades. This is not always going to be available. It depends by the park. Universal, during Mardi Gras, you can buy a spot on a float.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool way to
That's
experience a parade.
Different kind
and you'll
of...
have 6, 7, maybe 12 max people. Yeah. You can just get out of here. Get out of here. Go home.
That's for stepping on my foot earlier.
I'm kidding. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't
be violent.
We're not advertising violence.
Yeah.
But you can look into paid upgrades like that, which will give you a little bit of a break from the crowds. At Disney, there's a ton of options to avoid crowds in these situations. You can buy a dessert party at the Magic Kingdom, which we did for Enchantment with my parents. Gave us some standing room away from the majority in the Plaza Gardens.
A lot less people standing around us.
A lot less.
Yeah. Not no people, but a lot less.
A lot less. So that is an option. You can also, in some scenarios at Disneyland, I'm thinking of in particular, you can Genie Plus your way into a reservation for standing room at World of Color, I think it was, right? You guys didn't do that.
Yeah, but we
I tried to get you all in, but I couldn't get the reservation.
Yeah, and honestly, I think where Kaylee and I ended up standing for World of Color was just fine.
Yeah.
But there is like a seated area and like where you can sit. And honestly, that show, if you can get, I mean, I don't think there's really a bad spot to beat that show. I'm gonna be honest, but.
Certain other shows there are. If you want to see everything.
Yeah. There's definitely non-ideal spots to view, like Harmonious and stuff like that.
I was just going to throw Harmonious out there, because at Harmonious, if you don't have a clear view of what our friend Kim calls the Stargate, the ring in the center of the lake, you can't get much of a view at all on anything that's going on there. Yeah. So
you miss
you get the fireworks, but you don't get the projections.
You'll get like the wings.
There is a narrative that goes along with most of the Disney
center story.
shows.
Yeah, so it's like you have to be able to see a part, and if you're off to the side and you're seeing it would be cool if they configured it some way to rotate so that it really.
I can't believe they didn't do that. To be honest with you. I think that was a huge bungle, but
yeah,
it's a very. I love Harmonious. Harmonious is like the saving grace of Disney World right now, because we are not. But the fact that Harmonious, for all the different technological, what's the word I'm looking for?
Advancements?
Something like that. Marvels?
Yeah.
For all the different technological advancements and or marvels that Harmonious offers, the fact that the ring can't rotate is what bothers me. Because it doesn't seem like it should be that hard. But I guess it is one more thing that can break down too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So the other thing, and this applies to everything when we're talking about, whether you're at Disney, Universal, anything else across the board, find a spot an hour early.
Mm-hmm.
In most scenarios, this is the minimum. You'd think it would be ridiculous, but it's not. If you've never been to a Disney fireworks show,
made this mistake at Disneyland
so many times.
Bad. No, not so many times for that Disneyland Forever when we were trying to catch it. We barely got in.
Oh, we did try to find a spot an hour early for Disneyland because of park capacity. It's so much smaller of a hub. It was too late. And for Harmonious,
I don't think we were there an hour early.
I have a timestamp that proves you wrong.
I don't think Kaylee, were we standing there an hour? Or am I crazy?
I never, ever, ever try to get to a fireworks show at Disney any Disney park later than an hour before. If I'm trying to carve out a spot, if I don't care, like if I'm just going to casually watch the fireworks over my shoulder while I go get on Big Thunder, which is another way to avoid crowds.
With the Disney fireworks is they still need those pathways for people walking.
Yes.
So if you're not behind a rope,
I should have said spectacles.
Spectacles is a good word. If you're not behind a rope and that's out of a pathway, cast members will make you move, which is understandable safety thing and a fire exit thing. There needs to be pathways. So yeah, if you want to have a decent spot, you need to plant yourself for like. And we did do this for Main Street Electrical Parade.
Oh yeah. We were there.
We found a nice spot
way early. Like that was the only thing we did.
We just like, because we knew we wanted to film and we didn't want to have anybody in front of us. And
I've not released our real footage of the Main Street Electrical Parade. I did get the whole thing. It's not the best looking footage because our cameras are not like the best low light 4K cameras, but I do have like that entire thing for our memories. And I'm so glad that we have it because now the Disney has announced it's going away, which it was only coming back for a limited time anyway. But I know that we're not going to get back to
going away to
it
hopefully come back.
Hopefully 10 more years. But anyways, if you're going to try not to be like pushed around or like shoulder to shoulder, you do want to find a spot and carve it out pretty early. Now for Disney, no less than an hour. Sounds ridiculous. It's not. First of all, that time's going to go by in the blink of an eye because they're going to do like pre-shows and announcements and whatnot that are going to get you hyped. But second of all, it becomes very chaotic very quickly in those areas because like Katie said, they're going to start fencing things off. They're going to start roping off pathways. They're going to congest what would have otherwise been an uncongested crowd.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and I do this too, because of course I don't want to stand for a whole hour. People will be sitting down and then all of a sudden they'll stand up. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's a little more condensed because everyone stood up.
Right. So standing room only for most spectacles. This is not necessarily true for places like Universal with their Mardi Gras parade and the Grand Carnival parade at the Cedar Fair parks, because those parade routes are not designed to be parade routes. Those are just making use of wider streets where people typically walk. So you will have like sidewalks on either side where people will continue on. You will have storefronts. You will have light posts. Like there's a whole bunch of different vantage points you can choose for things like that. But at events like the Disney fireworks shows or at the Hogwarts Castle and Universal, these types of venues will only have a limited amount of space, especially Hogwarts Castle, actually, in any of the Universal parks. So if you want to see those shows, carve out your spot. You can sit down for a while as you're waiting, but as it gets closer to time, I would say like inside of 15, 20 minutes before showtime,
probably ask
they
you
will
to
come
stand
along
up
and ask you to stand up. So just assume you're going to be standing when you take up your position. And hope that you're not standing around in front of.
Oh, we've definitely done this.
We are guilty of some of these things. So when you have a large party, and especially when you have a large party, just realistically, think about it logically. It's really not fair for one person or two people to hold a spot that is meant for 8 and then have those other 6 people try to fight their way in.
Let me be clear. We haven't done this where we've held a spot for 8 people.
No. But
we've gotten separated and
held a spot for 4 with 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And had 2 people join it, which is not as inconvenient. But this just goes for everyone across the board. It's just good etiquette, but it's also a way to avoid pissing off the crowd and forcing interactions that you'd rather not have before a spectacle or a otherwise fun viewing experience. Make sure your whole party is where they need to be at the time when it's...
Or at least like most of your party. Because...
I mean, people will need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, they need to go to the bathroom.
People will want to get a drink. Like, it's fine to have like one person wander off and come back. That's not what I'm saying.
Try not to have one person saving the spot for 8 people.
This has not yet happened to us at a theme park, although I know it happens all the time. But on our honeymoon, just as an example, we were waiting to board a ship for a fireworks cruise, and we felt like we were in a pretty good position in line. And this gentleman in front of us clearly nervous about the reaction the crowd was going to have, the crowd being us and the people behind us, turns to us and says, just so you know, I'm holding a spot for my family. And we, casually thinking like 4 or 5 people were
Wife
like,
and
okay,
kids.
yeah, no worries. We'll let them through. And then someone behind us, or was it you that asked how many people? I think someone behind us.
I didn't ask.
I think someone behind us asked how many people because they were concerned, and we should have asked that question because his answer was 23 or something like that.
It was like 15.
It was an odd number, and it was a high number, and it was a double-digit number.
His entire family reunion.
It was insanity, is what it was. It's ridiculous to put one person in charge of reserving that many spots.
I was not happy because we got there early so we could get a good, and we still thankfully got a good seat, but it was still like, please don't do that.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, this is both etiquette and it's avoiding crowds because number one, you're bringing the crowd, you're inconveniencing other people. Your crowd is going to interact with another crowd, and in sometimes less favorable ways. But it's also just good policy across the board to not have one person reserved for 3 people, to not have 3 people reserved for 12 people, and so on and so forth. As many people as you can get from your party.
I think when we were reserving for 4, we had 2 people there at a time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as taking up as much space, and by the time it got to like 15 minutes left, like we were all standing there.
It's also just thinking about how the crowd is going to condense when everyone stands up. Like if you're sitting down and you're 2 people but you have 2 more coming, you're going to have less space amongst the rest of the crowd, which can be triggering for people who don't like crowds.
I will say, like, the thing I thought of first before you even brought up the people like waiting was when we got we didn't get separated.
Almost got separated.
He was picking up a mobile order for me for a drink, which honestly did taste amazing because I was so hot. But he was picking up a mobile order for me, and I found a great spot to view fireworks, which was going to be our last viewing of Happily Ever After ever. And the crowd filled in so quickly behind me, and he couldn't find me because it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And I think I've told the story before, but basically I had like people raising like cell phones, lightsabers, everything to try to like air traffic control him to my spot, and he did make it, and I was very grateful for that. But we're never doing that again. Like,
we learned. Along the same lines, try not to block anyone else's view. When you choose your spot, choose it knowing that there could be people in front of you or behind you, depending on where you're sitting. If you're up against the railing at Harmonious and there's nothing but bay in front of you, that's one thing.
That's perfect.
That's the optimum solution. To get that, you usually have to get there like 2.5 hours in advance. But if you're going to take a position in, say, the Magic Kingdom hub, just know that there could be people in front of you or behind you. If the people are behind you, try not to increase your height by whatever means.
Well, we do not have kids, so
putting a kid on your shoulders is kind of
I can't blame
someone
for putting a toddler on their shoulders when the toddler most definitely can't see.
You would want, now I do understand, like as kids or as parents rather, you would want your kids to be able to have a good view of the fireworks, and I don't begrudge them that. But
I do try to remove my ears.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. More so that, like, when you're in front of someone, if you're wearing a hat that's like twice the size of your head.
Yeah, if you got like a goofy hat on.
That's not a big deal when you're sitting down. You should really take that off when you stand up. And again, this is part of like avoiding incidents in crowds.
It's which also is why crowd safety.
It is crowd safety as well. So if you're going into these events, just, try to maintain some degree of etiquette on top of that.
And just part of setting expectations. You can't help that you're tall.
You can't help that you're tall, but you can stand in the back because you're tall.
You can.
So you don't have to go right up to the front.
Yeah. If you've got, especially like other people in your party, you can stand behind some of them.
When we saw Harmonious for the first time, we saw it on opening weekend of the show. And so there were a ton of people behind us that had never seen the show before, and we knew that. There were also people that we were with who hadn't seen the show, who were much shorter than
none of us had seen the show.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying they're just thinking of it across the board as like no one has seen this show.
Yeah.
Myself and our friend Kaylee, who is also a taller person, stood in the back while Katie and our friend
other
Morgan
friend
took
who's-
position in the front because they were both shorter and they could see.
The other thing
So-
to think about is, which I get kind of self-conscious about, is like holding your camera or your phone. Most people, I've realized, don't care. They will hold their phone up.
I do try
front
to
of your
cover the
face.
screen on the phone when I'm
Yeah,
vlogging,
so
regardless
just
of the situation.
If you want to be a nice person, try not to hold your phone up super high the entire thing. Like, I get if you want to get your favorite part, but just, not everyone is trying to watch the show through your cell phone. Just
Exactly, Kaylee.
Yeah.
Don't agree with this. I'm kidding. No, I totally get this. I would say that fireworks, this is less a big deal than it is at, say, an opera house. But I understand where she's coming from on that one too.
I mean,
Katie tends to dance.
I dance,
and she sings
I
on the
will,
soundtracks in the car.
Yeah,
but
and
not,
I will mouth the words along, but I try not to like verbally sing out loud because I know other people can obviously hear me, and it may not be.
Some
part
people
of their
just have
show.
songs in their hearts. What can we say?
Yeah. I have been at Broadway shows where people are singing the songs out loud next to me.
Yeah,
That
same.
was super annoying.
It was the same show. This one should be an obvious one, guys, but just talking of crowd etiquette and crowd safety, don't push or shove. It becomes a bad situation quickly. I probably don't need to go into any more detail than that. If you guys have been following any Disney news sites in the past year, you know that people are a little more volatile than they used to be. So just words of wisdom here. Don't start something and there won't be nothing.
Yeah. Don't be the next headline.
Knowing all of this and knowing that the intent of this is to try and avoid crowds, like, again, you can go home before fireworks start. Right. You can watch fireworks from your resort. You can watch fireworks from outside. If you want to see parade, that usually has to be done in the park, but there are places you can stand that are less dense. Like, there are ways to avoid crowds altogether during these events and spectaculars.
Go on a ride during the fireworks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can get some good riding done. That is the time to go on popular rides, is when the fireworks are happening and the crowds just thin naturally. But if you are going to try and do any of these experiences, see any of these things, experience them with your own eyes or ears or whatever, you need to be prepared for some crowds. And that's why we're giving in some crowd safety bonus tips, I guess we'll call them. Is so that you know how to avoid those kinds of situations that would not necessarily ruin, but might put a ding in your park day. General tips from us and our friends. We are coming down to the wire, guys. This one, I didn't want to say it at the beginning because that guarantees that it's not going to be, but I think this one may be a shorter live stream. Might just
and
be
that's
able to
with all my little tangents about not knowing what we were talking about today.
We pick at each other sometimes, guys, but we love each other.
I wasn't mad at you. I just was confused.
I know, I wasn't mad
was
at
like,
you either.
what are we talking about?
It's just like, oh, we should have had a conversation before we started. Anywho's it's.
This is why we go live.
This is why we go live,
the
so
genuine...
that you can see who Tim and Katie really are. Use third-party apps and planners. This is great for all types of situations, but especially in terms of avoiding long waits and dense crowds. Touring plans, isitpacked.com, different crowd prediction technologies that will tell you what days to go, what days not to go. This type of resource is invaluable. And during our Skip the Line passes live stream, we did go over a couple different ones that we use personally. I pay for touringplans.com, like a ongoing subscription that allows me to get crowd density on Universal, Disneyland, and Disney World.
No,
he's so sweet.
Warm fuzzies.
But other planners like that, isitpack.com is a good resource for Hershey Park. I'm trying to think about Cedar Fair and what predicts that one. There's different platforms that you can find through Google that do different things. But at the end of the day, all of these things are crowdsourced. So they're not going to be 100% accurate. They're going to be accurate based on data from yesterday or last week or whatever the closest correlation
third party, the parks have no stake in them,
right.
So they can be as
exactly.
honest.
They're not going to be inflated. They're not going to be depressed. They're just going to be what they are. They're going to be the closest representation of crowd flow that you're probably going to get from any kind of official source. It's not official to the parks. It's an official platform that you're paying for to be a little bit more accurate. So that's why we use touring plans. We love touring plans. I've loved touring plans since the first day I started using them. I pay $7 a year for that subscription and covers most things.
Worth every penny.
Worth every penny. As often as we get a Disney, invaluable. Storming Thrills, who, if we haven't said, Storming Thrills also works at Hershey Park. If you need help with the app at Hershey Park, ask an employee. They'll be more than happy to help. 100%.
I mean, that probably goes
100%
for most
across all the parks.
Yeah.
Most employees will be very helpful when asked. If you encounter an employee that's unhelpful, it's an anomaly. Don't let it speak for the park.
Yeah.
But most employees, as you approach them, especially at Hershey Park where we go regularly, these employees are great. We love them. We love them to pieces. We have a lot of employee friends at various parks, and we are not afraid to approach them with our questions. So in particular, when it comes to wait times, I find it's better to go up and ask an employee at the front gate than it is to check the apps in most cases. But the apps can be useful too.
Yeah, if it's got a good app.
Have a park map easily accessible. Not every app will have a park map. Not every park will have an app. Not every park map will be paper that you can take away from the front gate. There's so much love going on in this live stream, you guys. I'm so happy. But you can always get a park map on your phone. You can always print a park map out before you go. I happened to see on the Crystal Palace, she was in earlier, I don't know if she still is, but on her Instagram earlier today, she posted that she was handing out paper maps of Six Flags to all of her friends when they went to the park. I was like, dope. That is me. That is who I would like to be in my party. Just handing out paper maps so that everyone knows where they're going. And Vanessa is a map. So if you're going to a park with her,
I'm just singing
Chad,
the "I'm a Map" song from Dora the Explorer right now.
It helps to know where you're going all the way back to the beginning of the live stream when we were talking about coming in with a plan and planning your route out. That doesn't just go for rope drop. That goes for the whole day. If you know that you're going to be trying to hit XYZ in different parts of the park, you can look at wait times, you can look ahead, you can do your homework, your due diligence, figure out where you're going to have lunch. And you can figure out kind of the direction that the crowds are going to go based on. The
map might also show where like particular choke points might be that get a little more crowded.
And the map, had we looked at one, might have told us that Wildwood Grove was easily connected to the front of Dollywood by going the opposite direction, and we might not have made the mistakes we did.
Honestly, I did look at that map, but it was such a small little path that I was looking at it and I was like, that must be for employees only, and I didn't realize it was actually people. Real people. Employees aren't real people. What are you talking about?
As I'm pulling up Storming Thrills comment. No.
Yes, could use.
If there's no paper map, you can print one from Google. You also don't need to print them out, as we said. You can always get them from your phone. You can go on the web. Most theme park websites will have a map of the park somewhere in the database.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of digging.
And if there wasn't one like available at the front, which sometimes those things are empty. Sometimes you can find them at a guest services or a.
What I have found a lot of people do is they will set their lock screen as the map, or if you're going to Disney, like a barcode for your photo pass reservations or whatever. Like you can just take a picture of the map and set it as your lock screen. So as soon as you click your phone on, you can see like, oh, okay, we need to go. Yeah, we're almost there. But a lot of the apps, I will say one thing that Hershey Park's app is very good at is tracking your location. Because we use that feature all the time. It's like, how close are we to this? If we map it, what's the shortest way? That feature is invaluable. Disney's also very good at that. Universal, I don't think, has that feature. If it does, I haven't used it. I could be wrong. Could be totally wrong. I don't find Universal's app quite as reliable as Disney's, but I also don't have as much experience with that app. Yeah, 100%. If you can't find a paper map, you can't find it on your phone, just go up to a billboard.
We've done that for Busch Gardens, Knoebels. They have like a big billboard and usually like an I am here sticker, which helps orient you.
Multiple different ways to get access to a map. The key thing is knowing where you're going. However, you have to get there. Leo!
Hey!
What's up, man?
Long time.
Joining us at the tail end. You missed all the drama at the beginning.
That's okay.
You would have lived for that.
You would have.
All right. This you touched on.
Yes.
Avoid Saturdays and
My
holiday
psychic
weekends.
ability.
Now, having said this, when do we always go to Hershey Park?
On a Saturday.
On Saturday, because that's the time we have available. But we've been to Hershey Park multiple times. It's what we refer to as our home park because it's the closest
That's
one to
where we
us.
employ the not rope dropping, come a little later,
Exactly.
stay as late
Yeah,
as
we
you
go by
can.
every other tip instead of this
Yeah,
one,
eating
this
at
broader
peak
tip.
Off-peak times, making reservations. at
Avoiding
top tier.
Saturdays is usually best if you're going to a park you've never been to before and you have a limited amount of time and so on and so forth. You're just trying to figure out where to go and what to do. I know you love drama, dude. Getting bogged down in comments. I love all the comments. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, avoiding Saturdays in general is just a better way to go.
Surprisingly, we were at King's Dominion for 4th of July weekend, and it was dead.
We were at King's Dominion for the day before 4th of July.
It was Sunday.
It was Sunday, July 3rd.
That's true.
On
dead.
July 4th, I think King's Dominion was popping.
Oh, okay.
But we weren't there on July 4th.
I just assumed it was going to be so busy.
I did see lower than expected crowds that weekend for sure. But sometimes you just get lucky. Like I would say plan for it to be very busy and then be excited when it's not. As opposed to planning for a day when it could be very busy.
Because I
and
know
hoping
they were
that it's not, and
reporting
then getting there and finding it.
like big crowds at like Disney and Universal that weekend.
Yeah, Chad and Vanessa were at Carowinds that weekend. I remember them saying it was pretty dead too.
That's true. I remember that now.
100% avoid popular times. The only time besides the 4th of July weekend that we spent at King's Dominion and Busch Gardens, which we didn't actually spend 4th of July that day there. The only time we've ever been to a theme park on holidays were both in 2020, Magic Kingdom on Halloween, when all parties were canceled, when limited capacity, there were limited restaurants open, capacity was lower to begin with. And then Kennywood on Labor Day weekend.
And that was busy.
That was busier.
Yeah.
It was still limited capacity, but it was not.
But we were
limited.
also at the
They filled it out.
cleaning rides every 15-minute stage, so things were just
It was taking longer to get to everything. Yeah. These are things to think about, but this is the broadest, most general tip we could possibly offer. If you can, if it's in your power so to do, avoid Saturdays and holiday weekends for visiting parks. If they're regular parks that you visit often and you don't care, then it's fine. But, excuse me, if you're going only once.
Great low waits for the most part, low waits for Dollywood on a Thursday and a Friday. We were there on a Thursday and a Friday.
Truth. We had planned to be there on a Wednesday and a Thursday, but we had to shift things around because, number one, we were super duper tired and very dehydrated from several days of fun before. And also, it was supposed to pour one of the days that we were going to go. Wound up pouring on the day we went instead of the day we didn't go. But that's neither here nor there.
Anyway.
You'll see on Thursday, guys, when we do our Dollywood vlog, you will see we had a blast. We really
beating
did.
crowds, go when it's predicted to rain. I don't think we covered that in this live.
No, I forgot. I left that part out,
But
actually.
honestly, Florida, you can't help it. It's going to rain. But like other places, if they're predicting rain that day and you just want to go and see what you can do, just go. The rides may close for like an hour.
If there's thunder and lightning, roller coasters will close. That's across the board. Any
go to
theme
the
park worth their salt will
arcade
do that.
or go eat something or whatever.
If it's predicted to rain, if it just has a stormy cloud on the day, just go.
Yep.
I don't care what the rationale is for not going. No matter how far you've come, just go. Because a lot of the locals will decide not to go if there's even a chance of rain.
Yeah.
And that will cut about 40% of the park attendance down.
Yeah.
Roughly, on average.
Stormy Hills knows with it.
All right, that was a pretty good tip, but I'm going to close with, I think, what our best tip is across the board.
Oh, yeah. Patient pants.
Patient pants. You got to wear your patient pants. Guys, crowds exist. Any place where there is a theme park, there will be some level of crowd. There is no way to completely avoid all crowds. But as you wouldn't believe it, I realized this, but we are introverted people. We don't love being around crowds if we can help it. It just so happens that everything we love to do is something that 100 plus other people also love doing on that same day.
Mhm.
So it just, you can't go in with the expectation that you're not going to face any crowds at all, even during 2020, even at the height of the pandemic when capacity was limited and rides had limited operations and you were expecting to see virtually no one. You still saw a handful of people like us who had a passion for what we were doing in the parks. But now, today, it's basically back to the way it was before 2019. I would say I don't think capacity is limited anywhere right now.
No.
And, the pandemic is more or less in the rear view. I know it is still a thing that impacts people every day. In fact, we know people right now that have COVID, and it's not fun. But knowing that people have largely resumed the way that things were before the pandemic and are moving back into daily life and their habits, and revenge traveling, as we call it, where people are going back to Disney to make up for the trips they didn't take in 2020, it's going to be crowded. It is going to be crowded everywhere you go. So always be patient. Try to give team members a little space, know that they've been dealing with these crowds for a lot longer than you have, and with no way to avoid them because they're faced with the crowd all day, every day. It's their job. And be patient with the people around you. Be
patient, be kind.
Just know that there are ways to avoid certain scenarios and cut down on the amount of time you're spending with the crowds, but you're still going to be dealing with people. And people at the end of the day, they just want the same thing you want out of the park day. They want to have a fun time. So if we can all have fun together, much more the better. And that is why be patient is the protein.
I like this comment here from Stormin' Thrills. Yeah.
That's how we met Storming Thrills.
Go hang out with the park cops.
Go hang out with the park cops. When safe to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of fun to be had at theme parks, guys. That's why we love them so much. And I'm going to end with this picture of us on Pantheon. I was trying to wrap it in my mind when I was forming the narrative. I was like, there's so much fun to be had at theme parks. And then I started talking and just never stopped talking when I forgot to change the slide. But there it is. We have lots of fun at theme parks. We have lots of fun on these live streams too, guys. We appreciate you all being here. So I'm going to wrap up by pulling us off of this thing. By the way, it's Kaylee's fault that we have a much better slide performance tonight. It's because of Kaylee that we have a much better slide performance tonight, because
we did not have to restart the slideshow.
We did not have to start the slideshow every time. Oh, we love you too, man.
Oh, thanks, guys.
There's a lot of love in this slideshow.
There is a lot of love.
I'm loving it.
I'm
loving the love. So Mary Beth's Midwest Adventures. I actually encountered Mary Beth on Reddit while I'm part of a small YouTube community. We're in Reddit as Tim and Katie if you haven't found us. But Mary Beth's Midwest Adventures was a channel I stumbled across, and she does great stuff. And is a small channel that's just getting started, but has been definitely improving vlog over vlog since I started looking at the stuff. So highly recommend checking her out. She's on YouTube and Instagram. On Instagram, it's all one word, Mary Beth's Midwest Adventures. Adventures with Molly, all one word, has a YouTube channel. She is part of the YouTuber group that started our journey, the Disney YouTuber group on Facebook. And she has been just a force for positivity for a lot of channels in that group. And we really appreciate her positivity in our world. I don't think we interact with her anywhere near enough, to be honest with you, because she deserves a lot more support than we have the time to give. So we are putting this out there so that everyone else can pick up the slack a little bit and help her out. She definitely would appreciate your checking out her channel. And then our friends Mitch and Devin under Our Florida Passport. I'm throwing them back in again. We have talked about them before, but when we talked about them the last time was before their rebrand. They used to be Roadside Trippers. They are now Our Florida Passport, and they have YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. They are vegans. They explore all the parks in Orlando, and they also do a lot of Central Florida attractions beyond theme parks.
Yeah. Really great reels on Instagram if you haven't checked out their reels.
Yeah.
Devin has the reel game down.
100%. 100%. She's also way better at thumbnails than I am, so I can't hate that. So yeah, those are our creator spotlights. I saw one more comment coming in. JBH Adventures. Well,
We are enjoying
returning to Hershey Park for spooky season. We will not be the first ones there.
No.
We will actually be hitting, I think, the Hershey Park Dark Nights a little bit later in the season, but we will be coming back. We are super excited. It's been too long since I got any of the Hershey Park coasters, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that is in the future. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting? Oh yeah. Speaking of spooky season.
Oh, we're doing haunts
we
next.
are doing haunts.
Yay!
We're gonna be doing haunts. Storming Thrills, we'll talk. We'll hit you on Instagram. I have an ongoing thread of conversation with Storming Thrills. We will definitely meet up. On the 6th of September, which is, I believe, the Tuesday after Labor Day, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
is the first official week of spooky season when haunts start rolling in our area. Some haunts are year round, and I would love to be
And
near
of course,
those,
like Mickey's Not So Scary.
Mickey's Not So Scary has already started.
But we don't
action.
count that one as a haunt.
It's less of a haunt and
It's
more of a spooky party.
Spooky, yeah.
But we live for spooky season. We are all about getting
I have
up
already
in haunts.
started decorating.
Oh yeah, we have actually. We have some stuff lying around.
We're just kind of waiting.
That's just waiting to find a home. It's already been dug out of storage because
Yep.
it's about to go someplace. Guys, we are going to be very busy in spooky season. We have something planned for every single weekend throughout the end of October. It is going to be madness, but it is also going to be super fun. So we are super excited to roll around, and we may or may not have already been to Spirit Halloween.
Ours opened.
There may or may not be a vlog coming to kick off spooky season for those of you who are in on the know.
And we are also very excited for Dark Nights as well.
Yes,
You mentioned that.
100%.
Very excited
100%.
for Hershey to be leaning into that scene.
I have been
This
waiting
year.
for that for years. Since we first started going to Hershey Park, I was like, why didn't just adding fog last year? It upped the experience
That
several
was such
tiers.
a tease because I feel like there's no way they weren't already thinking about it.
I saw the fog and I was like, yo! We are so excited for spooky season, guys. I'm going to go ahead and cut it here because otherwise we're just going to devolve into haunt talk.
Spooky season.
And we have to save something for the next one.
So come with your
haunt questions,
questions.
haunt expectations, haunt recommendations.
Yeah.
This year's haunt schedule is full. It is full. We are going to the places that we are going. We cannot go anywhere else. But we will tell you on the next live stream where we are going, what we intend to do. We are media
What we're
guests
excited
at
about.
certain haunts, which is super cool. And we will be super excited to talk about all of that and what you can expect from haunts. And then we will be building next year's haunt calendar throughout the season. So until next time, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. It has been lovely talking with you all. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for joining us.
And sitting through all the chaos. Until next time, I'm Tim.
I'm Katie.
And every day
is a new adventure.
See ya.